Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another Why You Know Review, where I go over a bunch of albums that I was planning on reviewing sort of formally long style at some point, but I didn't get the chance to, didn't have the time to do it. I'm sorry, I apologize. Oh my god. Yeah, I didn't have the time or the ability to do it because I'm just one guy, I'm just one man, I'm sorry, but I'm going to talk about all these records gauntlet style, one after the next, right now, in this video. That's the point of it. That's what we're going to do, and yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoy this. You're the best. Mwah. Bam. New York drill rapper Fivio coming through with this full-length debut record, which was one of my more anticipated projects of the year, especially given how he killed it on Kanye's Donda and some of the lead-up tracks to this LP. But I'm not really liking the very all-over-the-place and bloated end result here, unfortunately. I can kind of see what Fivio was going for on this one. Give people a diverse LP that shows people the pop crossover potential of drill and also kind of, you know, widen out his own versatility personally in the process. But I feel like at the end of the day, all that we ended up getting was sort of focused, grouped, and agreeable and kind of watered down drill record, frankly. That just has like way too much going on with it. Like something just much more hard-hitting and tight and just like trim would have been way more preferable to this. The Black Keys coming through with what I think is maybe their most rustic sounding record in years, especially on tracks like A Wild Child as well as Burn the Damn Thing Down. Like really rootsy, bluesy, old school rock cuts. And while it is great to hear the duo almost like back in that bag a little bit on this project, by that same token, this is one of their mildest projects in terms of like performance and energy and delivery. It's almost like the Black Keys have lost that raw, exciting feeling that they brought to the table in the first place, and that was kind of what made them so cool off the bat, that they were like making the blues and making old school rock and roll just exciting again in a way and giving it a very stark and rough around the edges feel. And yeah, again, while that's back, the energy hasn't really returned, and I think this record suffers as a result of that. New very short project from IDK with wall-to-wall production from the one and only Kaytranada. And yeah, this thing may be short, but it has a lot of very cool, groovy fusions of hip-hop and dance music and electronic music. I do wish there was more to it, though. The Denzel feature is great. Wish there were maybe more features to kind of even the whole thing out. The production really does kind of make the project as well. But still, there are some decent highlights here, and I would say this is arguably one of IDK's better projects, even if it isn't like the most fully fleshed out or lengthy. More very relaxed, stoned, contemplative folk rock with an indie and slightly psychedelic twist from Mr. Hval. He's been on this kind of like drier run of records that are more naked in presentation as of late, and I haven't really been able to vibe with them because I typically do like the trippier era of his catalog, and you know, while he is a vocalist that I recognize very instantly, I don't get a lot out of his vocal performances generally, or a lot of his songwriting. It just kind of has the pacing of molasses to me. And while there are some people who are definitely looking for that, you know, very easygoing kind of feel to their songwriter music, to their folk rock music, for me, I'm looking for something maybe just a little more urgent, and I'm not quite getting it out of this 74-minute record. But if something of that length and of that chill vibe interests you, which if it would, how the hell do you not know who Hval is at this point? Please listen to the man's music if you've been living under a rock, I guess. But yeah, this one's still not really doing it for me, though it does sound like at this point Kurt is at a very happy point in his career where he just has like the ability and luxury to indulge in exactly what, you know, he wants to do and play to his strengths creatively, and that's a good thing. New LP from this Belgian rapper and singer, which is arguably his most extravagant yet. The instrumentals on this thing are huge, plus they showcase a lot of diverse combinations of pop and rap and string-backed art pop, as well as cumbia and Latin pop, Afro beats and French chanson. But ultimately, while there is a lot of ambition to the instrumental palettes of this project and the genre fusions, often I felt my ears just kind of being drawn more toward those than the vocals and the vocal performance. I think think the production carries generally across this record. Would I be as into these vocal performances if they didn't have these massive shows of instrumentation? Probably not. In fact, I wouldn't say this record is nearly as emotionally captivating as it seems to be convinced that it is. But I suppose I've never really been a big Stromae fan up until this point, so no love lost there. I was kind of surprised, despite some of the fire teasers to this record, that we are getting such a scant offering from Ibeyi on this LP. Really, it was the teasers that were the biggest and most exciting tracks, and beyond that, there's not really a whole lot of glue to hold the rest of the record together. While the chiller moments in the track list are certainly cool, it's still just a very meager project from the duo at a point where I hope they would really kind of build upon the artistry of their past couple of releases and give us something big, give us something huge, give us something to truly be excited about in terms of their very connected and otherworldly and mystical sound. Still, moments like the Black Flag cover as well as Made Up Gold are certainly worth checking out, but once you've heard these moments, don't expect the rest of the record to blow you away or leave a super strong impression on you, I guess. Bam Bam is back, kind of continuing on the creative streak that he's been on for the last several years with White Bronco and Only for Dolphins. Give fans these very short, sloppy, raw, wild projects that come in and leave quick. Planning, structure, topics, artistic ambition, what are those? Bronson is seemingly still at a point in his career where lyrically and song-wise, he's just sketching. He's kind of sketching. He's just throwing raw, just really quick sketches out there. And while they're very fun in the moment and his sense of humor and charisma have not left him for sure, he's not really making very thorough songs at this point, and I wonder if he ever will return to doing that in any way. 7L, Inspected Deck, and Esoteric are back on this new LP, and I'm starting to feel like, does CZARFACE have anything to offer us at this point that they didn't already give us in spades several years ago? Because we're kind of getting another helping of that slightly villainous East Coast hip-hop and boom bap, but not really as much fire lyrically or vocally, and it kind of seems like some of the best beats the outfit had to offer are behind them as well. While this isn't bad, it also kind of just seems like they're going through the motions on this one, and I was kind of hoping they would give something a bit more exciting and substantive, especially after that short, second crossover with MF Doom, R.I.P. But yeah, this was just kind of a very underwhelming delivery from CZARFACE, outside of a couple tracks. Despite being one of the most well-known outfits in house and EDM, we are finally getting the debut full-length album of Swedish house Mafia, which just kind of goes to show how successful of an artist you could be artistically in this lane without having to worry about dropping an album or being like an album artist. And I feel like that is pretty much confirmed with the release of this album, because while there are some really cool tracks and highlights on here, the song Mafia, the A$AP Rocky track, also Calling On is really great as well. With that being said, this thing kind of just runs like a bit of a compilation that stylistically is all over the place. There's a lot of bland house and EDM cuts in the mix as well, with some pretty unimpressive vocal performances from guests. Kind of, veers between bangers and really exciting, grimy and bold cuts to songs that you would hear in a very bland Spotify playlist that you would have on in the background that has a kind of generally electronic feel to it. But yeah, it's okay. On this LP, Owens veers left and gives us her most abstract and ambient and sometimes spoken word self ever. It's certainly a shift in tone from her last full-length LP, but in some ways not quite, because she's really embracing those more experimental influences that have always been there in her stuff. And there's some quite immersive and beautiful moments on this record that I found really captivating, like SO2, for example, while other spots on this LP just came across too stark, too bare, and maybe a little too tedious as well. Overall, this is not as accessible as the stuff you may have heard from Owens in the past, but again, if you really like some of those more left field genres that have inspired her work up until this point, this may be the project for you. Plus, on top of it, the production is consistently pristine, and I absolutely love that quality about it. Tears for Fears are back, and at least in some pockets of this record that it took them 20 years to come out with, almost, they're sounding like, that classic new wave and synth pop outfit that we know and love from back in the day. But, you know, some of the production is a little heavy-handed and hulking and just a little crushing. That finesse that they had in the early days is kind of gone for the most part, even if some of the vocal performances here are impressive and very quality. Even if the songs are solid, the production and delivery method really, I think, could use some work and some nuance across this record. But still, with that being said, like, this project does sound better than some records and bands do that take this long to come out with another album, come out with a follow-up. Plus, at this point, with there being like a newfound appreciation among some younger listeners for the band, it seems like there is some incentive for them to like embrace the older days a little bit and just kind of play to their strengths creatively. And ultimately, I think that's a good thing. Soft Cell, we have another classic artist from the new wave, from the synth pop era of the 80s, coming through with a brand new album, first in quite a bit. Yeah, this one's quite different from the Tears for Fears in some ways that I was just talking about, because like, in some respects, while I think Soft Cell has done a better job of like sticking to the very rudimentary and raw rubric that informed like their early stuff, that is great. That is cool. I enjoy that aspect of this record. The other thing about it that I'm not so much enjoying is that the vocals and the songs and the lyrics are so awkward and sometimes just outright bad and just really missing something, really truly missing something. And it gets to a point where it's kind of tough to listen to. Almost like Soft Cell have somehow become like an outsider pop act in like the vein of Tonetta, which is an interesting shift, I suppose. But yeah, there's something really amiss about this project, and that's unfortunate. Though the Pet Shop Boys crossover cut is pretty cool. Very ethereal, dreamy, washed out neo-psych with super whispery vocals from front to end. A few guitar riffs and leads that pop out here and there on key tracks, but overall, I'm just really not too crazy about this sound. It's just very flavorless, it's very bland, it's very wallpaper, it's very background, and typically I enjoy stuff that's just a little bit more front and center in terms of like, you know, where the focus should be. This just kind of seems like a little too casual in my opinion. So I don't know, if you're looking for something that's psychedelic, very chill vein, give it a shot, give it a try. But this just wasn't really leaving too much of an impression on me. I kind of went into this new Belle and Sebastian LP hoping that the band's best days weren't behind them, that they weren't just kind of a shell of their former selves at this point, and I feel like this album just kind of confirms that, unfortunately. There are some spots here where the band really tries to pull together something rockin', and that only, as I listened to them more and more, these tracks only came across more awkward. The vocals, I think, have gotten rougher over the years, and lyrically, I think Belle and Sebastian are just really out of things to say and observe with any kind of poignance that would be, you know, worthy of note or dissection. I don't know what Belle and Sebastian is doing on this record other than kind of chasing its own tail a little bit, sadly. And, you know, it's sort of unfortunate given artistically the high peaks earlier in the band's career, but I just feel like that's where things are at. Geez, I was really looking forward to this new Ravyn Lenae album, especially given like how much I loved that Crush EP a while back, because that was such a colorful and bold release. But like everything that made that project so standout and so eccentric and so bold has not carried over onto this project. Ravyn, I think, unfortunately just succumbs to the pressures to make just a very bland, polite, washed out, reverby, like weakly sung alternative R&B record that has no personality, no flavor, background, wallpaper. Like, where's the funk? Where's the passion that was on that Crush EP that made me feel like, wow, this is like a potentially standout artist that's going to come out with something like really in your face and really colorful. But like all that color and all that fun has been stripped back to almost nothing on this project, and it's frankly mystifying. I'm just kind of flabbergasted that we've reached this point of uninspiration here, of gray. What could this mysterious art collective possibly have up their sleeves next? Could it be a 45-minute modern classical choral piece? No way. No way! Actually, yes way, because there are multiple classical cuts on this thing that are extravagant, they're beautiful, they are lavish, they sound huge, and ultimately this thing serves as a proof of how creative and wide-ranging SAULT actually is. Now, with that being said, are there some songs that I'm not really that into, aren't my cup of tea, and the appeal of them mainly is just kind of the instrumental size of them as opposed to the composition? Yes. But simultaneously, there are some tracks here, like Heart, for example, that builds on an amazing melodic theme, higher and higher and higher. Also, the horns on Time is Precious. Those are incredible. So yeah, this thing does have some standout moments, but like, unless you're a bit of a modern classical fiend, this may be a tough trudge to go through for you. This new Phife Dawg here, usually I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to any posthumous projects, honestly, and you guys already know why, given the state of many of them that we hear year after year. But listening to this one, it's pretty clear that everybody involved like really put the time to make sure this was a quality record, didn't just throw it together, didn't just throw it out there. The beats and production are really complimentary, the features are really complimentary, and you know, to me, this project doesn't sound like it's like desperate to gain any kind of like, you know, cheap crossover appeal or anything like that. This thing is truly for the fans. It's for the fans. It's just Phife Dawg sounding great in his comfort zone creatively with decent verses, decent features, decent songs and tracks and structures all around. Again, not thrown together, not trash, not anything like that. Obviously, it's not going above and beyond artistically or like trying anything new or crazy or experimental or anything like that. Again, this is for the fans. It's for the hardcore fans. It's for the people who just kind of want to hear more Phife. And there's nothing wrong with that, frankly. You know, again, I would rather this be a project that plays toward expectations and is a little bit of fan service and portrays the artist in a positive light, in a flattering light, than something like super weird and experimental and throws them over a bunch of beats with features that make no fucking sense just to like get people to try to listen to it and then just ultimately be disappointed by it. Going in this direction makes so much more sense, and you know, frankly, I think this is a great tribute to Phife's talent and his style and his influence. So, you know, good idea, guys, doing a quality posthumous record. If only we could have more of these. Zishin, have you given any of these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, YUNOREVIEW, forever.